The Brilliant Resilient is an NFT art exhibition that's going to be held very soon. And we have two very special artists who will be showcasing their work. Hi Nuwan and hi Aadhitya. How are you doing?
We're doing really well.
Doing well, thank you.
Glad to hear it. We'll start with you, Nuwan. Tell me a little bit about when you really started dabbling in art itself.
So I think my art journey sort of begins, I would say, about close to 9-10 years ago.
Okay.
I was studying architecture, so I started to experiment with different art materials. That kind of, I think, sort of rekindled the sort of artistic interest. Once I started drawing, it sort of kind of naturally sort of progressed, and it got to a point where, like it was kind of like a hobby, but then it developed into kind of like a full-time preoccupation of mine. Then it got to the point I was like, okay, this is what I need to do. So then sort of I dropped out of my degree program and decided to sort of pursue the arts like full-time, just like give everything that I have towards it, sort of not having a backup plan, so to speak. So that is the only thing I can do. So that forces me to pretty much put all my energy into. So I've been doing that since, and I started like hand-drawn pen artworks, and then I moved to sort of like the digital realm. And for the last perhaps 5-6 years, I've been sort of focusing more on the digital side of things.
Okay. You tell me, Aadhitya, how did your art journey start?
So ideally, again, from being really young, or as a kid, always loved doodling. Always loved, I used to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and just start scribbling. Yeah, just start doodling. Like it was almost a stress buster and a healing. But I never realized that was it at that point in time, obviously. And I'm also an architect.
Okay, interesting.
And so again, started off as an assistant art director, creative director, and stuff like that. And figured I love doing comics and a lot of watercolor. That's how got into the whole art scene, but don't really know much about anything that was happening around. In the sense, like I was super involved with how to develop my skill, but of course, yes, there's so much learning that has to be done. And I realize all of that only now. So for the past 3 years, started my own brand and do a lot of merchandise and making functional art and not only a 2D sort of a plane, but how to make it more wearable, how to make it more empowering to people or empowering to myself. So it was almost a giving and taking in terms of how I feel and how when someone else can feel relatable. I think that's the whole, that's really nice. Yeah.
Okay, great. So this exhibition has to do with NFTs. What is your background in NFTs? Have you done it before? Have you dabbled in it before? Is it new?
Okay, for me, it's been the first NFT that I've launched. And it's definitely because of Nuwan and Kesava for pushing me and, for kind of telling, you need to do it. And somehow everything, worked really well. And I think I'm really happy about what I've produced as well, because it's a particular piece about Kali. And I love Kali. She's often denoted as a very negative sort of a,
character.
Right, or a goddess. But there's so much divinity, there's so much nurturing, there's so much humbling. She's just raw in her energy. She's just really real. So that's one of the reasons, like, I started painting Kali as well, and somehow everything worked out and was able to produce really good work.
That's great. How about you, Nuwan?
Yeah, so I've been in the sort of NFT space since like last year, last year October. So I've sort of known about NFTs and all that, but I never really took much of an interest as such. But then few artists that I know, I sort of saw what they were doing in this NFT space sort of. And then I sort of reached out to them, and they're like, yes, you should really sort of get into it. So with the help of one of my friends, like artists, I just dived right into the NFT sort of art making, NFT scene, I would say. So, and as a digital artist, you know, like my sort of original, I really love the fact that what the sort of the technological potential of NFTs and sort of blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies, they all go kind of hand in hand, right? So that was like that really sort of, you know, empowered me as an artist, because as someone who makes like digital art, and there is no system to sort of authenticate my work or sort of have proper provenance for the work. But now the sort of with NFTs and blockchain technology, it provided the sort of background and the necessary technology for that to happen. So last October I got into the NFT scene and got in touch with the other artists and communities who are sort of engaged in it, and I had my sort of first sort of sale in February this year.
Oh, that's great.
And since then I've sold altogether now like 5 pieces I've like sold in the NFT space. And in coming to the NFT space, that has allowed me to become like an independent, like fully independent artist. So like before that I was doing like design work and all that stuff, you know, to sort of supplement my art journey, because it was as the art, it's great to do art on the creative side, but it was not completely sort of paying my bills, so to speak. But being in the NFT space, I have been able to sort of completely support myself from nothing else but my art. Really, that's the sort of potential I see for NFTs. It's that sort of empowerment of artists, and sort of the creator themselves, the artist becomes the platform, you know, and that we are able to sort of have that sort of independence, and you know, and it's great. And that's why I was like, when Kesara was talking about the exhibition, I was like all in. I'm like, yes, NFTs, you know, like
the future.
It's not. It's the. Future. Yes. But the technology itself has been there for quite a while, and there is, you know, like artists who have been using this technology for quite a while as well. I think it's relatively like new to Sri Lanka. But there are already like artists in the NFT space from Sri Lanka, but there has not been sort of a collective effort of sort of getting everyone together and sort of approaching the technology in a more accessible way. I think there's still kind of like a technological barrier, so to speak, when you come to NFTs, because you have to deal with like cryptocurrencies, you have to deal with like wallets, and you know, there is a sort of miscommunication or lack of education of what it is actually. So I think this Brilliant Resilience actually does a great job in sort of bridging that gap, you know, of making the technology more accessible.
Did you find the transition to NFTs challenging?
For me, no. It was there was like a bit of like technical know-how, kind of like, you know, like wallet and all that. It's new concept, but I don't think it's once you get into it, it's not difficult at all. It is actually, I would say, it becomes even more easier than sort of signing up for like Instagram or something like that, you know. It's just that we are not informed of what it is,
the potential of it, and how to
not just kind the potential, even just how to get into it. I guess it's like, if it's already kind of in circulation and if it's everyone's using it, then you know it's not become sort of trendy. People don't complain about getting into trendy things, right? They like somehow find a way to get into it. right?
True.
But this is not that yet. So then people are like hesitant, or like, oh no, this is so much of work or something like that. But once once you realize the potential, it is it's not that difficult. Like, it's not that difficult at all.
How was it for you?
The experience overall has been good, but was I a bit skeptical? Was I a bit scared? And I can relate to everything that he's also saying. It was almost like, oh, is this going to be difficult? Is this going to be easy? And then, I'm already doing illustration, digital work, and a lot of physical work as well. So I was just thinking, is this the right space to be in? But then there's always experimenting, and you can't put yourself in a box. So that's some of the reasons I was like, you know what, you should give this a try. And like I said, this is my first NFT, right? So I was super stoked about it, and I was like, okay, I have to give this a go, see how it's going. And like you said, creating the wallet or all of that is almost extremely independent, and you can do it by yourself. And there's so many things online that you can learn from as well. There's a lot of resources out there. And I really hope that, even in Sri Lanka, like, it has started, and I think the brilliant recipient has given us that space, Upside has given us the space. So, I mean, looking forward to more and more creative stuff and collaborating with creative artists and whatnot.
So tell me about the work you created for this project.
Like I said, I did a piece on Kali, as always, beautiful, divine and whatnot. And the idea was to also be raw, but yet a bit politically correct, or maybe not touch into the politics of it, because it is a very heavy subject, right? It is something that has to be thought through. Even though art is a powerful tool, and we're able to express in such beautiful ways. So the whole idea of the piece itself was the anger. It wasn't like, we want to burn things down, but it was just anger, and from everything that was happening around us. And also, she basically reflects that anger. She's not, there to kind of take stance on it or do anything. Just reflect our emotion, how we are feeling and she's feeling, and there's a sync between that anger, but yet there was also a space for just kind of find, I won't say calmness, but in the chaos, since we're reflecting anger with each other, how is she, and she's just there. So that was the whole piece about. It was just reflecting that emotion, that raw emotion, raw energy, and so that was nice.
That's beautiful. What about you, Nuwan?
Yeah, so I have 3 pieces.
That you have, okay.
And 2 of them are based using AI art.
Okay.
So I think those are sort of more on the conceptual side of things. I think one is called Murder of Leo. That was the idea. The whole idea was it's kind of like a collection of images that I've generated, and I put it into like an animation. It looks very sort of brutal. There's like blood and like all that. Like it's just like looks like just a bunch of murdered lions. That was the idea, of how the sort of present situation is sort of has brutalized the spirit of a entire nation. That was something that I was really sort of, that hit home kind of, so I wanted to sort of express it, and I was looking how to do it, and I thought like AI art is a great sort of another creative tool that is at our disposal, and it's relatively new in the art scene as well, and it allows you to create these sort of really sort of novel kind of images. And I thought like I will just so I just kind of described all the sort of feelings I had in my head to the AI, and got like it to generate a certain set of images. That one. And another piece is called Puck Politics, because I probably was not appropriate to have the, so I just switched the 2 letters. That's about like, and that's again done by AI, but if you look at the piece, it looks like it was done by like a 5-year-old kid. And that's the power, some of the power of the AI is that you can describe the situation and you can tell it like, okay, like this is the situation, but draw it like a 5-year-old kid would draw. Like, so it was about like kind of like police brutality, people, like the water trucks and like that kind of situation, how the sort of that kind of sort of state-driven that state-driven malicious intent, how that affects kids, because we are not necessarily, this is not what's happening now is going to have sort of a generational sort of trauma in a way, so how does that reflect on people. And the other one is called Just Wake Up. It's just an animation, it's really annoying to look at if you look at the piece. It's just like sound and also like just slightly kind of epileptic kind of image, like you would not want to stare at it for long, but that was, the idea was kind of like to induce kind of like a shock to people, to get people to when, like when they see it, the people should be like, oh yeah, like get on your feet kind of.
True.
So it's also those, for Brilliant Resilience, all those 3 pieces were pretty much, I mean, inspired by what was happening with the Aragalaya and the sort of also the entire sort of political history of Sri Lanka. It was a reflection of that, which is also in like a kind of newer kind of realm for me, because with my usual kind of work, I kind of keep away from all things political, and because that never kind of interested me, because like I always kept away from it, because simply because it was not important for me, but then I realized that it's kind of like my sort of ignorance and lack of participation in the political process is part of the problem. Our ignorance is what has gotten us here, right? So there has to be a point where because politics is always seen as something like it's something not good, so people are discouraged from it. And that lack of participation is what has gotten us into this mess in the first place. So it was a new thing for me to sort of actually sort of keep my normal art practice aside and sort of dive into the sort of political narrative and see what I can sort of reflect on it.
Okay. So that is great. It sounds really exciting, and we hope to see your work soon. So thank you, Aadhitya and Nuwan, for joining us on this beautiful catamaran, and we thank Lanka for that. Thank you, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you. Thank you.